All right, welcome to Jedbangers Ball. I'm your host, Jed Mayhew. Today on our show, we have my buddy Johnathan Rice, who, you know, I met him years ago, and he's come in and out of my life a bunch of times and in a bunch of weird ways. And, you know, you have these friends, you know, I consider him a friend, that you don't really see him that often, you know, but you like him. And then when you do see him, you know, you remember why you like him. And I like Johnathan Rice. He's a really funny guy, and we had a really good talk, and it was good to have him back in my life, in the studio, on the Jedbangers Ball show. So without further ado, here's our conversation with Johnathan Rice. Switch.
Yes.
Headphones like everything else.
Oh, yeah.
And these mics, you gotta kind of talk almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Headphones like everything else have gotten so fucking complicated that yeah, it's not like, well, we're recording. I mean, it's not like I used to have just regular ass headphones that you just listen to.
Yeah, of course.
And now you have to turn them on. And then you forget, then like you go and like make a sandwich or whatever, and you forget to turn the switch off, and then the battery dies.
Yeah.
I need a flex alert warning to turn my headphones off, so that I know I'm not running out of the batteries. I thought, yeah, we're recording the show. What are you talking about?
Oh, it just started, huh?
Yeah, it started. That's how it starts. Just to throw you off. I thought you were Australian when I first met you.
That's understandable.
Why?
Well, it's because my accent is supremely muddled.
Yeah.
You know?
Is that a Scottish thing?
I mean, I think it's just the product of growing up between Virginia and Glasgow, Scotland, so that it just, like, it became its own thing. Connor Oberst once said to me that I'm the only man that he knows with 3 fake accents.
What's the third one?
I don't know. It's
You should ask
he's
him.
heard heard all 3 though.
There's
Maybe he's the
probably
only
a
one.
drunk one that comes
Yeah,
out.
There definitely is.
You were born in Virginia though?
That's right.
So you're American.
I am, yeah. I hold a British passport as well, though, in case things get a little hairy.
But so Scotland's so if you're born in Scotland, you're a British citizen?
Yeah, you're part of the United Kingdom.
Oh.
You know, despite our best efforts last year to
Right.
have a referendum.
Yeah. Where did you swing on that one? Were you for Scotland or no? What you wanted to be your own country?
I guess the
I'm answering for you.
the popular kind of catchphrase of the movement was head versus heart, where the media kind of spun it where the common sense decision would be to remain within the United Kingdom for economic reasons, and the heart, just which desires freedom from our ancient colonial oppressors.
Right. It's the same. In here they say if you're a Republican before you're 35, you have no heart.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And if you're a Democrat after 35, you have no brain.
Well, yeah. I mean, they seem like they're both just pretty much the same nowadays anyway.
And if you vote for Donald Trump, then you have dog's balls.
Yeah.
Bollocks, they call it.
What did
Where you're from.
What did Jon Stewart say the other day? Since, like, him insisting that people not make fun of his hair is comedic entrapment.
What do you think about this whole Donald Trump thing? Like, I mean, I'm just fascinated by it. And I haven't really. I mean, this is where I feel like the head versus the heart thing, because obviously my head is like, don't vote for Donald Trump, but the heart is like, what happens if Donald Trump we're spinning in such a fucked up direction as it is. What if he is like the Antichrist that needs to be awoken to get to just obliterate this whole shit pile we've made?
I think that Donald Trump is like the logical conclusion of American politics in a corporate media environment. I think that's what you get at the end of the day. It is a reality show now, the whole thing.
Right.
And this is what happens. You get this kind of garish casino owner at the center of politics, and you have CNN and all these networks. You know, I think I saw Anderson Cooper like, why is Donald Trump so popular? Maybe because you're fucking talking about him all the time and asking why he's so popular.
Right.
Meanwhile, you've got one of the most worthy candidates, in my view, in recent decades, like Bernie Sanders.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Marco Rubio.
No, well.
No, I agree with you. That's the thing. So here's the thing. So I'm totally with you on this Bernie Sanders thing. And, you know, my parents they live in Louisiana, and so they're not with me on this whole Bernie Sanders thing.
Right.
But, and, you know, to each their own. We just don't discuss it during dinner or whatever. It's fine. But I'm with you on this whole Bernie Sanders thing, you know, as opposed to Hillary Clinton or whatever. But why? But he's not getting any press now, and the chances are it's going to be Hillary.
I mean, I don't even think there's a chance. I think it's preordained, and it's just going to happen.
So yeah, that's the thing. Is like my heart probably wants Bernie Sanders, and my head probably thinks Hillary Clinton, maybe, and my dog's balls voting for Donald Trump. Anyways, I'm trying to. I did first meet you though at the Sasquatch music. I didn't think you were Australian then. I don't think we really talked.
That was my 21st birthday.
That was your 21st birthday at
Yeah.
Sasquatch Festival.
Yeah, the day I met you. Yeah.
Was it the first Sasquatch Festival or was it?
Oh, I'm not sure. It was.
Yeah.
It must have been.
Coldplay was the headliner.
Were they?
I'm pretty sure because I said hi to Gwyneth Paltrow backstage.
Oh, wow. But maybe that was a different day because I remember the Postal Service playing because I was there with them.
Right.
And I remember the Shins playing, and that's when I first saw you.
Right.
And you were naked.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, for the folks out there in Podlandia, when I mean he was naked, I mean that he was naked. And was on stage with the Shins very briefly in very cold weather.
Yeah, thanks. See, I think about that sometimes, like as I get older. I mean, that was like 10 years ago, right? At least.
I think 11.
11 years. See, and you know, it's like you do these things when you're younger, and then you think of they haunt you sometimes, and you think about it like, oh my, what was I thinking? And then I you know, you like watch the Woodstock film or something, and you see this naked hippie running around, and that's like some guy. That's probably like that guy probably owns a bank now or something, or he's definitely someone's father.
Yeah, I'd put money on that.
And then I think, you know, well, fuck it. You know, if Donald Trump becomes president, like, who the fuck cares if you got naked and ran around at a music festival?
Well,
I mean, like, that's living, right?
But also, we're minutes away from, like, ball sack recognition technology, you know? Where you can't just roam around music festivals with your cock and balls out. Because, you know, soon people will be able to be like, you know, double tap, and it'll recognize, you know, whose they are. I don't prevent you from gainful employment.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, so I worried about that. I was worried about that whole thing with the getting a job, and then 10 years. I still don't have a fucking job anyways. So you know, like it doesn't matter. Is that where you met? That was your first date with Jenny Lewis?
It was one of our major first dates.
Did she have second thoughts as far as, you know, like which guy to choose?
I don't think so, because I think I did it right. I splurged.
You kept your pants on?
Well, I mean, at the festival, did,
yeah.
Unlike yourself.
Right.
I remember I had always wanted to stay at the Edgewater Hotel in Seattle.
Seattle, yeah. Where the famous hotel where the Beatles stayed, and also Led Zeppelin fucked a woman with a shark there.
Right, although I have heard that it was actually members of Vanilla Fudge that did that.
It was there's a photo because the guys from Led Zeppelin are like looking through the window like high school boys.
Oh, there's actually a photo of it? I thought it had always been like maximum rock and roll hearsay.
I don't think there's an actual photo of the act being done, but there was like some photos being taken of them like hanging out together, and there's like a photo of like I think it's like John Bonham or someone's like peeking through the window like and like they're about to like get the shark out.
Wow.
So you got a hotel room there.
Yeah, I got a
I stayed
room
there with my parents.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You could no longer fish out the window when we stayed there.
Right.
But I remember...
Was it because of that? Is that why they banned it?
That was the shark that broke the groupie's back.
Sharknado.
I don't know. Maybe it was because of overfishing. I don't know. We stayed there, and the Postal Service hadn't played in a second. I think they were rehearsing. I was on tour with Dido.
Dido?
Yeah.
What were you doing on tour with Dido?
I was opening for her.
Really?
Acoustic by myself.
Yeah.
For some reason, she liked my music, and she was very sweet, very lovely, but I did feel rather mismatched with her audience. Her audience was like a little bit perplexed by me, I think.
Right.
But so I flew from L.A. to Seattle, got a room at the Edgewater, and I remember the Postal Service were rehearsing, and I remember meeting Ben Gibbard and Jimmy Tamborello in my hotel room at the Edgewater, and Gibbard to this day, he's like, man, I really mad dogged you the first time I met you, because he felt very protective towards Jenny, you know.
Yeah.
And he's like, who is this kid with 3 fake accents? But then we got along rather famously. It was a lovely weekend.
It's a great story. So getting back to, you come from Virginia, and then you went to Glasgow, and you grew up going back and forth high school because your family's like, they're like in the government or something, right?
They're not in the government, no.
They're military.
No, neither.
They're definitely soldiers.
I mean, soldiers of fortune, maybe.
Got it.
No, my dad's always worked kind of in international affairs, primarily for years as a speechwriter.
Yeah.
Which led him to work for the World Bank and then the International Monetary Fund. And but sometimes we would go back to Scotland and he would teach at the university or write a book or something on economics and stuff like that. So he's never actually shaped policy or anything like that, but he's always been in and around it internationally.
Yeah, my question is, given that how did you find music and stuff and start picking up instruments?
Through my father, definitely, and also just kind of through Scottish kind of party culture in a way. And what I mean by that is there is kind of a thing in Scotland and in Ireland as well where everyone's kind of expected to have a little tune that they sing when the guitars come out, or when everyone's had enough to drink, and
sure.
Everyone's kind of expected to do something.
Like tell a joke or something.
Exactly.
It comes around like a round robin sort of situation.
It might be a story, it might be an anecdote, it might be a song. And
I feel like everyone has that except for American white people who are just so nervous and anxious around each other that we can't be bothered to learn anything to share.
Yeah, I found that.
Because you go visit like a black family or like a
Sure.
Latino family or something, and they have like these interactions that are amazing, and then you go to like visit your family, and everyone's like, I'm gonna go to the movies, I'm gonna be in my room.
Yeah, certainly melodically, I can hear in some of my own like work some reverberations of like old Irish songs and old Scottish songs that my grandmother would sing, and then I would learn and things like that. So it probably came from that. And in my house, there was just. I guess my dad was a record collector. There was tons of vinyl in the house. There was tons of records, and there was definitely like a reverence for music in the house.
What kind of music was he into?
He was really, really into the 70s singer-songwriters, which were of his generation.
Right.
He was a singer-songwriter himself. He like made some demos, had a beautiful voice. So lots of like Steve Forber was big in our house. Chris Rea was big in
Oh
my
yeah,
house.
Chris Rea was big at my house too.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's cool. You
Yeah.
don't really hear a lot of people say that.
I know. Sometimes I'll hear Leonard Cohen, or sometimes I'll hear Chris Rea, and I'll think it's Leonard Cohen, or vice versa, you know. And then I'll be like, "Hey, this is Chris Rea," and then someone's like, "Who the fuck is Chris Rea?"
And also, it was a joy as a kid to go to the Barras, which is means barrows, like wheelbarrows. It's like Scottish slang. The Barras it's like basically the Scottish black market in Glasgow, where you could find basically anything from, kind of maybe 1 day old produce to really rare records. And I remember getting out of print records at the Barras that you could get. And I remember American Stars and Bars by Neil Young was out of print.
Sure.
On the Beach by Neil Young was out of print, but you could get them there. You could
Right.
get like
a bootleg version.
yeah,
of it?
absolutely bootleg. Yeah.
How were they? How were they bootlegging it? Were they pressing it in Scotland like themselves, or?
These were CDs.
Oh, okay, CDs. Okay, gotcha. So they were just like dubbing. What do you duplicate a CD? I don't know what the fuck you do with it. You throw it away now, but like
you burn it.
You burn a CD. That's right.
Burn
you
a disc.
You burn the disc. But were they like with like hand drawn covers, or were they like?
They were poorly photocopied, often black and white.
Right.
So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
In what year was that then?
This must have been, well, for me, I was born in the mid-'80s, so this was probably like late 80s, early 90s.
So they were still doing that up till that point. Was it just out of necessity, or just to like save money, or just to because they didn't fucking care and they're just like, we could sell whatever we want?
Yeah, I think there's always been kind of a culture in the UK and throughout Europe, really. I mean, there's a black market in every country,
Sure.
really. But there was always this, like, they call it, in Scotland, there's a phrase for it called off the back of a lorry. Like, where'd you get that? Oh, off the back of a lorry. Like, it's kind of,
Sure.
kind of Goodfellas style almost.
Cigarette truck.
I remember my friend's dad owned a very famous pub in Glasgow, and a guy would come in and he would have a big coat on, and there'd be watches in there, and there'd be, just things that he happened to acquire, and people would haggle for them at the bar, and I'd be under the table like watching it happen.
And so when did you pick up a guitar out of all this?
I think I got a nice cheap guitar probably when I was about 9 years old.
Did you get it at the Barrows too?
No, I didn't ever buy an instrument there. No, I think I got my first guitar from a little strip mall in Northern Virginia.
Right. And you just started playing. Do you taught yourself, or?
My dad taught me the first 15 chords, which I only use 5 of those now anyway.
There's 15. I thought there was 3. I'm way off. So you start playing guitar and stuff, and you're going around like it's more of like a for fun, right? Like a hobby thing
sure.
at this point.
Yeah, I was very focused on my education, and because my dad and mother had come from relative poverty in Glasgow, he had worked so hard to get us this great education, primarily in the States.
What were you studying?
Oh, I would just mean regular.
Oh, just regular.
Yeah, I never
high
went-
school.
Yeah, so
You were going to be a gym teacher.
No, I was very dead set on being a human rights lawyer in Central or South America. That was like my goal in life.
Right.
I don't know what I was radicalized by.
No, I think
Rage Against the Machine
that
albums or
your
something.
indie singer-songwriter thing is done way more for the world than any of that would have ever.
Well, there's no way of telling. I'd like to think you're right. But so I guess it was always understood that I would pursue higher education and just, I don't know, become a productive member of society, I guess.
Right.
But I had a strange kind of shift in my mood when I was 17. And I was in a band in high school and started writing songs. And I met this guy who had an independent record label, whose name was Chris Coip, in Northern Virginia, D.C. And he had gone to my high school, which was an all-boy high school in Washington, D.C., called Gonzaga College High School. And
I almost went to Gonzaga College in Spokane.
Oh, okay.
Was it a Jesuit school?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's named after St. Aloysius Gonzaga, the
There you
famous
go.
Jesuit. So he offered to put out an EP of my first 6 songs, and I was like, oh, this is great. And then I basically just had an epiphany of sorts. I was like, I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to... Heartbreaker by Ryan Adams had just come out on Bloodshot Records out of Chicago. And when I heard that record, I was like, I didn't realize that people actually listened to music like this. I thought I was the only one who loved Graham Parsons records and like records like that Heartbreaker was so clearly influenced by.
Because I would imagine where you were living and where you were growing up there in D.C., Virginia area, and how old are you, 31?
32.
You're 32. So, I mean, were you getting like some of that like D.C. like hardcore like or like Discord sort of stuff?
I know it would make me sound cooler to say yes, but honestly I was totally oblivious.
Got it. Well, no, I mean, it doesn't, that's what I'm saying is I feel like maybe in a way for what you're doing, it's better that you didn't know about it because that's why you
all of
were able to do what you did.
My musical world was an inner world.
Right.
I had very few friends that liked the same music as me.
Right.
It was like the peak of Dave Matthews and Fish and stuff like that, and kind of almost like prep school music culture.
Right. And that's what the people around you were listening to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But you were more into this sort of like the Byrds,
yes,
Graham Parsons.
So I was aware of the Beachwood Sparks in high school.
Gotcha.
And Heartbreaker by Ryan Adams, and that kind of clued me into the fact that there were people who were influenced by the same records that I was. They were far, far away, and I had to go find them.
And, you know, I could ask you and lead you into these questions because of the audience, but I do know these things about you, and I know the Beachwood Sparks and stuff. And so you knew of Beachwood Sparks in high school.
Yeah.
And then, but you didn't know them personally until you got out here.
No, I really thought, especially from their press photos, that they were magical cowboys.
Well, I mean, Farmer Dave may or may not be.
He absolutely is.
He is. Okay. Then I'll go with you on that he is. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember, well, basically I made a deal with my parents because I had basically switched on them. I was this very focused, academically driven kid, and then I just decided to become a musician, and it was terrible for them. I mean, they hated this idea. And so I moved to New York City when I was 18, 2 days before 9/11. That's
wow.
Absolutely true. September 9th, I drove up there. And basically I had made this deal with my folks that my plan was to get a major label record contract within 1 year of living in New York City.
Right.
I was like, this is something that I can do, so don't worry about it.
You really were like insular as far as like what you thought was going. Like you created your own world.
I did. So I was like, well, I'll just do that. And rather bizarrely, I did do exactly that. And I was able, within the 365-day limit that was placed on me and that I placed on myself, the demo that I had made with the guy, Chris Korp, that I described earlier, made its way to Warner Brothers Records, to this A&R guy whose name was Perry Watts Russell.
Yeah.
And he really liked it, and he flew me out to Los Angeles and signed me.
Right.
And so I got a record deal with Warner Brothers and started making records for them.
And at that point, do you reach out to the Beachwood Sparks guys?
I remember telling Rachel Howard, who worked at Warner Brothers at the time, and is a really cool chick, how much I love the Beachwood Sparks. And she's like, well, I know Farmer Dave, you should meet him. And so I went over to his house in Silver Lake, and there he was, and I couldn't believe it.
LA is one of those weird places, though, where like if you get here and you have this idea about some people or someone like Farmer Dave, and you ask around, and someone could say, yeah, he's over there behind that tree drawing a picture of his girlfriend with a box of crayons.
Yeah, and there he was in Silver Lake, and I kind of wormed my way into his life. And I'm still very dear friends to him.
Yeah, of course.
With him to this day.
And so, I mean, was that like, when you get signed to this label, you're like, I want to like hire these guys to be my backing band? Was that the idea? Did you
the Beachwood Sparks?
Yeah, or whoever. I mean, I know Farmer Dave becomes...
They were almost, by that point, They were, I think, right when I met Dave, he was beginning the all-night radio phase of his life, which is still one of my favorite records that any of my friends have ever made.
Right. I like the song where he's starts off with him talking about how he's hanging out outside your window, and then he's
When you realize that the bicycle that he's on has wings. Yeah. The first line of the song is, "Hey, look outside your window." No, up here.
exactly. He's not down below.
I think that's actually a song about a scientist who tried to design a bicycle that flew. I think it's rooted in reality, that song.
I believe it. But when you signed to this major label, though, what label was it? Warner Brothers?
It was Reprise.
Reprise,
which
part
is,
of Warner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you feel like pressure immediately? Did you feel...
They were always so cool to me.
I mean, that's what I'm asking. Did you come in and be like, I want to work with these musicians? Or did they have people they were like, we're going to say... Because you're a young kid. How old are you? 21 at this time? You're 20?
Yeah, I was 20, yeah.
Yeah, so did they have, like, people that they were like, this is who you're going to work with? Or did
Not
you
really.
have ideas of what you wanted to do?
I guess there was a period of them figuring out, we probably can't actually sell this very well. But before that was after I signed. I think I was signed in the aftermath of songwriters like John Mayer and Jason Mraz and those kind of, I don't know what wave of singer-songwriter that is, but those kind of guys were getting deals and having hits. So I think they maybe saw me like, well, he could be our guy like that.
Right.
And then I handed them a record that was basically like a rather complicated sounding song cycle that I made with Mike Mogus out in Nebraska. And I think they appreciated it on our artistic level, but I think commercially they were like, oh boy.
And what happened with it then?
Well, I don't think it ever sold a ton, but it got me on the road and it got me on tour, and it ended up becoming kind of a favorite of music supervisors.
Right.
Because that was kind of the beginning of that era where musicians were no longer so precious about having their music on the OC and Grey's Anatomy and ER and all these things. So I was able to get songs on that, which was enough to keep me on the label and make more records.
Right. Because we had the last show we had on was Justin Gage.
Oh, yeah, I know Justin.
Aquarium Drunkard.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to have Johnathan on in the next show. And he said that you were in this band for an Elvis movie that he was doing the music supervision for.
That's true, yeah.
And Ron Livingston was playing Elvis.
Yes, it's kind of a subplot within this film that this filmmaker Eddie O'Keefe made called Shangri-La Suite. Yeah.
And Eddie O'Keefe now his brother is in the Orwells.
That's right, yeah.
Which is on Autumn. I'm starting to figure out what's going on here. Which is Donald Trump is controlling all of us like an octopus with his hair down into at the back of everyone's necks and like making all of this shit happen, revolving around the Jedbangers Ball. Okay, now I know what's going on. All right, I was wondering what the hell was going on, and now I know exactly what's going on. So, anyways, you mentioned Dido.
Yes, I did.
And that being a weird show, but when this first album came out, you opened for like REM and some other people too.
That's true, yeah.
Like around the same time as the first album?
Yeah, I was playing the first kind of the first place my music took off in any way was in the UK. Because I don't know if you read like Mojo and Uncut. I mean, I think I once was on a plane and I was like, does everyone on this plane have a 4-star review in Uncut?
Sure.
Almost everyone does.
Whenever I wonder what Bob Dylan's up to, I'll read Mojo magazine. Sure. You know.
So they were very supportive of my first album, and I was on tour opening for Martha Wainwright in Manchester, and something happened where I think REM's show got cancelled that night for health reason of a band member.
Well, the drummer was sick.
That was earlier.
Okay.
That was during like the Monster tour.
Gotcha.
This was in the early 2000s, and Peter Buck ended up coming to the show that I was playing, and he liked my music and asked me to open for the band.
Who was in your band at that time, though? Who were you touring with?
Nobody. I was by myself.
Oh, you're just by yourself, acoustic guitar.
Yeah, that's the majority of touring I've done in my life has been solo acoustic.
Because I remember I saw you on Letterman one time, and I don't think I knew you at the time, but I was really excited that I saw Farmer Dave there.
Yeah, I mean, Farmer Dave ended up in the band.
I love how it always
not gonna afford to take
it
other
just always
musicians.
comes back to Farmer Dave. So Peter Buck likes it, and then you end up opening for REM in front of like a zillion people, though.
Yeah, they were having these really large concerts in the UK in the summer of 2005 or 4, and one of them was in Hyde Park, which was like, it really did feel like one of those like, you know, like the famous Stones show after Brian Jones is dead and they released the Butterflies. It was one of those, like, idyllic, beautiful day in London, but there was 75,000 people there or something like that, and Farmer Dave and I and Neil Casal opened the show as a trio, kind of like a country rock trio.
Neil plays drums, right?
No, Neil played
he
guitar.
played
There
guitar.
were no drums.
No drums.
We probably should have brought drums,
Yeah.
but we did not.
Jimmy Hay was unavailable.
Jimmy Hay was unavailable.
Aaron Spursky was not to be found.
No, both. I'm sure they were off starting rad bands. Those two guys, like, if either one of those two guys are playing drums for you, your band is about to become like famous.
Right.
That's what I've always found. They're always like, I mean, Jimmy was the first guy that I knew to play with Ariel Pink.
Right.
Aaron was the first guy I knew to play with Father John Misty. Like, they just have like such exquisite taste, you know?
Yeah, Jimmy was. It's funny, man. I remember I saw the Shins in Detroit right when we were Sub Pop was signing the Fruit Bats, and I went to Detroit to. I don't know what I went to Detroit for. They sent me to Detroit for something. I don't remember what. Oh, I was driving the Beachwood Sparks van back for them. That's what it was.
Really?
Yeah.
It comes back again.
Yeah. And I remember seeing Beachwood Sparks play with the Shins and the Fruit Bats, and standing there with Jonathan Poneman, who was on the trip with me, or I should say I was on the trip with him. He was taking me around, and him saying to me like, "Oh, we should just sign Jimmy Hay as himself, and then we can just insert him into every band as the drummer."
It's a really good concept.
And then that would help. And that never happened.
No, because it's almost like A&R what he was doing. He was just like picking the best possible bands and songwriters and playing with them.
Yeah. Well, I remember I was in the hotel room later, and I said to Jimmy Hay, I said, I'm really stoked I got this record by this band, Clear Light. That was like it was a LA band that was kind of like supposed to be the Doors, but the Doors became the Doors, and they were on Elektra or whatever. I said, Jimmy, I got this record by this band, Clear Light. I'm like super excited. You can find that anywhere for $1. You know?
I remember I once saw Jimmy on the street, and he was pushing a stroller down the street, and I was like, "Do you have a kid?" And he's like, "Nah, this isn't my kid." I was like, "All right. Well, what are you up to?" And he said, "Oh, well, these guys are sending me to Amsterdam to buy some records for their new barbecue restaurant." I said, "Okay, fair enough. You know, he's always on some other shit." As you say.
And you know who was cooking at that barbecue restaurant?
You?
Yeah.
Dude, that wasn't even a setup.
I swear to God, Donald Trump is really fucking shit up.
I'm glad I didn't say what I was about to say, because I was gonna call it like a dirtbag barbecue restaurant.
It was a dirtbag barbecue restaurant.
I mean, it seemed like the proprietors were dirtbags.
I mean, yeah, they were.
It was like one of the very few times like the proprietors came over to my house with a friend of a friend. And it's one of the very few times my lady was just like, "These guys have got to go."
And they were serving food for people.
Apparently so. I never tried it. I was always wary.
I was one of the cooks there, it was also staffed with members of Vietnam.
Yeah, I was aware of that. Yeah.
And I remember one time Michael from Vietnam was he had a big beard.
Yeah, Michael I love. Michael's really
sweet guy. Yeah, of course. Zumi worked there.
Oh,
everyone's listen. Shit happens, Nobody's perfect. But I remember Michael had a big beard at the time. Had like a piece of macaroni and cheese stuck in his beard.
Oh man!
And he was like,
probably there for days.
He was one of the servers, And this dude comes in. A dude comes into the restaurant and sees the macaroni and cheese stuck in his beard. And he goes to the guy, he's like, huh, getting high on your own supply, huh? And, this could be its own show, really. But I just want to tell my producer's telling me to not focus on the barbecue restaurant. But Johnathan likes this shit, so he can listen to it. Another time, there was a Yelp review where they were talking about seeing the owner in the kitchen, like wearing like shorts and like no shoes, and he's like, "Big old boys back there, no shoes on, eating a rib." Yelp review.
I would imagine they never crested above a B grade on that.
No, I think we got an A, and that just shows that the whole thing is just like the whole lettering system. Just FYI, everyone is just it's a total racket. So don't trust it. I don't like to go to places that have an A. I prefer a B.
Huh.
Especially if it's like a Asian food. I
like
only get a B.
You like a little taste of the streets.
A little grime. Uh-huh. I like a little funk, if you will. So, are you living in LA at this time now after this REM experience? Is LA your home now?
I was still living in New York City then.
Were you going out? Were you and Jenny were together at this time?
We were not. Well, it's kind of
you don't
blurry.
have to get into that. That's
kind of blurry.
That's your personal business. I'm talking about it more because you guys make so much music together and projects and stuff, and I don't mind talking about my girlfriend.
I don't mind talking about it. We didn't like.
She's in the fucking room right now.
Your girlfriend's in.
Yeah, my girlfriend.
My girlfriend's in Australia.
Oh, good for her.
We didn't really start collaborating musically until 2006. We were just talking about that the other day, that we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of writing music together. I started collaborating with her pretty heavily when she first released her first solo record, Rabbit Fur Coat, and that came out on Conor Oberst's Team Love records in 2006. And I remember they had hired a guitar player to be in the band, and he kind of boned it and left her kind of scrambling for a replacement. And
he quit or something?
He didn't quit. He just was not the right guy for the gig for whatever reason.
Sure.
And so to replace that one man, she hired two men, me and Farmer Dave.
Wow.
And I had my first record was still out and I was still touring it, but I believed in what she was doing so much. I loved the style of music that she had done on that first record. So we ended up on stage together every night for over a year touring the world. And that kind of was the beginning of us having a creative relationship, at least, and started writing a ton of songs. And we just started writing together all the time, and still writing by ourselves, but kind of a style of songwriting that was unique to the two of us started to emerge. And it would always be like, well, who's this song for? Is it for me? Is it for you? And we would just kind of figure that out. And then, we've been writing together ever since.
I was thinking about that earlier because I knew we were doing this today, and you brought it up just now. The deciding, like, is this song for me or is it for you, is an interesting thing in a relationship. But also, you guys write for film, and I wonder, like, do you ever write a song and think, I got hired to write this as a song for a movie, but I really want it for myself?
That's the feeling you want to have.
Right.
I think.
But do you then hide that song and not give it to the people that hired you?
I mean...
And where do you hide it?
Well, there are many places to hide songs.
In-
one
in-
could argue most songs are hidden nowadays.
Or in Michael from Vietnam's Beard is a
Right,
good
they could
place.
be. Yeah. Get high on your own supply. Well, I guess that's an interesting question. When I say it's the feeling you want to have, when you feel a possessiveness over a song, in my opinion, that's usually because you love the song, and the song is of some quality. If you actively want to give it away, it means you're trying to create some distance from it almost. But because we had been developing this relationship, we were writing for one another, I think it allowed us to open our minds up to the fact that our songs could be sung by other people, which has led to us writing songs for these movies, which we've been doing for the past few years now.
Right.
And that has been one of the biggest kind of creative developments for me, has been writing songs for films, because you get a script, and you get that script and you no longer have to draw from exclusively within yourself to write the song. You now have these developed characters that are on the page who have their own relationships, their own histories, and you get to use that as ammunition in the song.
Sure.
So when we met with Meryl Streep to write for her new film, we had a meeting with her before we wrote the song.
Right.
And we read the script before we wrote the song. So, and we talked to Johnathan Demme, the director, before we wrote the song. So although Jenny and I wrote the song, it's very much a collaboration and a reaction to the conversations we had, and a reaction to Diablo Cody's script. And I remember meeting with Meryl in New York, and she was talking about creating her character, Ricki Rendazzo, who's the character in her new film.
What's the movie called?
It's called Ricki and The Flash.
Okay, right. I saw the poster the other day.
So she's Ricki Rendazzo in the movie. And she said, I want her to be scratchy. And even a word like that, scratchy, like that, as a songwriter, that really makes your mind start churning around, like, okay. And then you read the script and you see that her character voted for Bush. And it's not this. So you can tell that this woman's maybe a little harder edged and maybe not more of an emotional person than an intellectual person, for example. Mm-hmm. And that very much influences the kind of song that you would write for a person like that.
Wow. Right. I mean, when I'm writing a song, sometimes if it's about a chud monster or a some sort of liquid virus that kills half the population, I'll then Google that to see if I can come up with some lyrics words that rhyme with death or disease. Or
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing. It's scratchy.
It's very, very much the same thing. Very similar artistic endeavor.
So, I mean, it's fascinating to think, just having that in front of you, that you have to now go back and sit down and write. Do you feel pressured to do this? You're writing a music for Meryl Streep to now sing.
Yeah.
Do you feel the pressure of that?
Yes, but I will say, and I'm sure you identify with this as a songwriter, pressure can be a gift and can be the most helpful thing in actually getting something done.
Right.
Because there's so many idle hours as a songwriter, and there's a lot of inertia that builds up. And to know that a film is shooting in the fall and you've got the summer to write a song, that's, for me at least, I've always loved having something hanging over me like that.
Sure.
Because it forces me to work.
You have the studio time booked.
Yeah.
You got to figure it out.
Exactly.
So when you get in there, you're ready,
Yeah, so we had a finite amount of time to write the song, and we wrote it relatively quickly, and we decided to make it a song that would work, obviously, just as a song in the world, but that it should have, to us, we wanted to kind of insert a message of solidarity between Meryl's character, Ricki, and her daughter's character, who have kind of a major conflict in the film. Mm-hmm. And on its face, it looks and sounds like a drinking song. It's called Cold One. So it's just about having a cold one. But it's also about coldness and emotional distance between people and things like that. Double meaning.
Did you get into writing the music for films before acting, or did you start acting and that's how you got into they knew to hit you up for music?
I don't think one was necessarily related to the other. I think I was cast in Walk the Line when I was very young.
How did that happen?
It's rather embarrassing, in a way. There used to be a magazine called Elle Girl, and it was like the teen version of Elle magazine, like how you learn how to become viciously materialistic as a young girl before you actually start reading Elle.
Right.
So they did a list every year of the 50 hottest rockers, and
right.
I found myself.
I submitted myself to
you
that.
did, huh?
Yeah, a number of times.
Yeah, well, you got to kind of. There's a campaign around it. You know, you got to kind of play ball.
Yeah. I ran out of funds.
I found myself on this list, and the only reason I'm telling the story is because the producer of the film, Kathy Conrad, I believe, had bought a bunch of magazines and was looking through magazines to try and find young musicians to cast as the musicians in Walk the Line, and I think they were of the mind that they wanted real musicians rather than actors, or musicians first, actors second.
Sure.
Type thing. And I think she found that magazine and saw me and called me for the part of Roy Orbison, and I read for it and I got it, and I filmed that movie.
That's all well and good. What number were you on?
Number 2.
Number 2?
Number 2.
Out of 50?
Out of 50.
Who was number 1?
I mean, I think it should come as no surprise that it was
Justin Bieber.
Adam Levine. Bieber was in short pants.
Well, it depends on... It's Elle Girl, right? Not Elle Woman.
He was more like an Elle sperm at that point.
Okay. Adam Levine?
Adam Levine was number 1.
Oh,
Where he
okay.
remains,
Yeah,
justifiably
he's
so.
still there. Who was number 50?
Oh, who cares? I don't know.
Right. It was not Paul Goddard from Atlanta Rhythm Section. I don't think. The bass player known as the Blob, they called him.
I don't know him.
No, I know you don't. But he shows up in a previous episode of Jedbangers Ball, so I wanted to give a shout out again to Paul Goddard.
So I was in that film, and
What was that? How was that, though? I mean, you got fucking... It's a Johnny Cash film, so you must be thrilled. Like, it's music.
oh, it was totally thrilling. And from every aspect, I got to move to Memphis, Tennessee for a couple months, which is still one of my favorite places, and I don't think I would have ever gotten to know a place like that if it had not been for that. And just to watch an actor like Joaquin Phoenix, like, get ready for his scenes and work with him. And I guess it's like well known. They always call him Method or whatever. I don't really know what that means totally. I have an idea of what it means, but I guess because we were supposed to be this crew of Elvis Presley, Roy Orbison, Johnny Cash,
The Traveling Wilburys. That's what it is, right? No, but you guys were like supposed to be friends in the movie.
Supposed to be friends,
Like,
so he really embraced that, and so we really did like terrorize Memphis by night, which was really, really fun. And just to watch an actor like that work and watch Reese Witherspoon work, she's so incredible.
You guys would go out in Memphis as characters?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean we would shower and then go out.
Got it. I get it. Yeah.
And then got to work in the studio because we had to make the music as well. Got to work with T-Bone Burnett in the studio to make the soundtrack. So all in all, it was just my role is relatively small in the film, but it was a huge experience for me.
Yeah, I mean it's like a dream come true to be number 2 on Elle Girl's magazine list.
Yeah.
My mom would be so proud if I could ever do that. So you continue acting, you continue making music. I mean, where like now it almost like just coincides. It's just one, right? It's not. For how do you look at it? Like,
I just look at it as
you never wanted to be an actor.
It was not something that I envisioned for myself. No. I mean, I think everybody secretly wants to be in the movies or something like that.
Sure.
You know, a kind of a vague desire. But
Right.
it was never something that I pursued or envisioned for myself, really. I always thought of myself as a songwriter and musician. But
then you move to LA, and it's like it's kind of like it's so around you. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
truth be told, you know, you and I were and or are at some point in acting class together.
that's true.
So, are you still there?
Yeah, sometimes.
I need to go back. But you know, you get in this town, and if you do love, I love movies and I love music, and you know, there's things around those that are lame or whatever, and you can call. I'm 35. I don't give a shit now what happens, but you know, you have this like this town sort of engulfs your mind if you have an interest in film. You know,
Sure, and I think for me, I just see myself as a working artist, and I try and remain open to whatever opportunity arises, knowing that it all feeds the one creative force within you. You know, acting can lead you to development as a songwriter. Songwriting can lead you, can develop you as an actor. I think it all feeds itself.
And so, I guess you sort of answer the question, but like in this new movie, what's the new movie called with the Elvis band in it?
Oh well, I mean, I don't even know if I haven't even seen the film. I don't even know if I'm in it in any way.
You don't even know where.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's like a shot of me playing in it or anything, but I didn't have any dialogue or anything like that. We were just Elvis's makeshift band.
But how does that sort of come about though? Like you just friends of friends. Like,
Exactly. Yeah. My friend's making a movie and he needs some dudes to be Elvis's band, and so it just happens, you know.
Cool.
Yeah. It was really cool to see Ron Livingston channel Elvis Presley.
He used to come into another restaurant that I worked at, but it was a much like cleaner sort. It was a vegetarian restaurant actually, and he used to come in there, and it was a much different experience.
Right. Yeah.
So I want to point that out that I didn't only work. Just so you know,
in the barbecue place. Right. No, you've had a very rich kind of arc when it comes to cuisine. So,
what's next then musically? Because I mean, do you ever feel like the movie thing kind of pulls you away from like the original focus though?
No, I don't. The goal is to keep making music, and I'd say about 2/3 done with the writing of a new album, of a solo album.
Because you're on a different label now. Like
I'm on no label now.
You're on no label now.
Yeah, I put out a record in 2013 called Good Graces on a label called SQE, but that label, it's like the next step beyond streaming. It's when a label actually vaporizes into thin air.
So I mean, that's kind of like what we try to get at here.
You know, that's what's going to happen. You know, after streaming, it's vapor.
I mean, there was a fucking thing at Sub Pop where they were trying to sell like it was like a joke they made where they were trying to sell like air or something like
really?
like an invisible MP3 or I can't even remember what the thing was, but I mean, what do you do then? Like, you get dropped by Warner Brothers or whatever, and through no fault of your own, because now people you've licensed music to TV shows, you're making them money, and it's become this sort of like cult hit record. You said so yourself, you know, as far as like people really like the weirdness of this first album, but at some point people change, and these people are there to like justify their existences, and then these people lose their jobs, and maybe the people that were the big Johnathan Rice fans don't work there anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
so you have to navigate this on your own because it's
you just have to navigate on your own, and I mean, not to sound too like hippy dippy about it, but you have to do the work for the work's sake. And I consider myself to have had like a very good career and a really fortunate career, but the kind of music that I'm making, the kind of music that satisfies me and that I need to make is a major label in 2015 the right place for that music? I don't think so. So I kind of understand. But yeah, I guess I don't really worry about it that much. It changes so quickly. It has changed so seismically, the entire landscape of our industry, that it's kind of, I don't want to say it's useless to fight against it, but you have to accept it and navigate it as best you can. And there are very good ways to get your music to people, just yourself if need be. But I'm confident I'll find more than just myself to put out my next one, you know. But if you are, if you're a record label out there, we could talk turkey.
He is number 2 on the hottest 50 years ago.
Years ago. I don't know where I would
I don't know
stand now.
if I had to guess now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, top 10.
Well,
for me.
Really? For you?
Yeah, for me. You're
Thanks
definitely,
very much.
You're right. Well, you're top 10. You'll always be top 10. But the point is, we're making this to make it, and you got to do the work because you want to do the work. And that's what we're doing here today. We're doing the work.
Sure.
To do the work.
Yeah.
And so that you don't have to do the work. And I appreciate you being here and doing the work with me.
I appreciate doing the work with you too, bud.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thanks, man.
All right, that was Johnathan Rice. That was a lot of fun. I want to thank all of you guys for listening. I want to thank Johnathan for coming on the show. I always forget how fucking funny he is. I love that dry Scottish sense of... Is it a Scottish sense of humor? I don't know what it is, but it cracks me up. Anyways, thanks to Green Street. As always, this is not a pipe. We're recorded here in beautiful Mid-Wilshire, Los Angeles, California. Our producer is Jessica Hunley. Our producer-engineer is Nicholas Fahey. And thank you, the listeners, for tuning in to Jedbangers Ball. I'll see you next time. Peace!